Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about a subject that got as much attention in the B2B tech world as just about any other topic this year, and that's digital transformation. There's a new report out that details key findings for digital transformation. To discuss that, I'm joined by Matt McLarty, Chief Technical Officer at Mulesoft. Matt, hello to you, and thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Really appreciate it. Definitely, this is the hot topic for companies, especially in this world we're in now with post-pandemic and economic headwinds and so on. So I'd love to share the findings.
Amazing, isn't it? I mean, I've heard so much about it this year, and it feels like if I think about digital transformation, it's really simply using technology to streamline our workflow, which probably is not a new idea, but the emphasis on it is new. I want to talk about the report, and there's some interesting trends I want to dive into. But before we do that, let's get kind of a global view. You know, if you look at the report, what's the biggest takeaway in your view?
I mean, there's some great data points, and we're going to talk about some of the specifics there. But I think it's really the overall sense that, I've been in the space for quite a while, working with companies. Like you said, it's not like digitally transforming is anything new, and then there's various phases of digitizing data and using it and so on. But it's really the sense that after the pandemic was a lot of things, but certainly from a digital business perspective, a point of inflection where I think companies recognize that it's not a choice anymore. This isn't a future thing anymore. Like we have to have a digital foundation for every company in every industry, every organization. And so that really reflects in all of the findings in the report to just show how companies are recognizing that this is more than just, hey, let's play around with some new tech. It's more about, we're kind of going through a structural shift in business, the way the Industrial Revolution impacted things, the way mass manufacturing influenced the last century of business. Like this is a paradigm shift for companies.
It's so true. All right, so some key points from the report. I thought this first one is interesting. The growing prioritization of sustainability will drive the final say on IT investments and spending. So I take that as almost an optimistic point. Companies really are focused on sustainability. I see a ray of optimism there.
I do too. I mean, I love getting involved with organizations in sustainability. Let's be honest here. Like I think we want it to be altruistic and philanthropic in terms of why it's there, but the companies I've worked with, and it's actually distributed geographically differently across industry differently. But for manufacturing companies and big organizations, there's a correlation between sustainability and efficiency, right? And so, I've even worked with some companies who sell sustainability solutions, and they started with the altruistic message as their marketing approach. Then they realized, no, pivot to efficiency. And so a lot of manufacturing companies are realizing that the more sustainable approaches are the more efficient approaches, and that we're all running up against the limits to growth. So that's great. And then in the consumer space, right, in the B2C company space, industry, that industry, retail and others, they recognize that there's brand value in sustainability, that people care about it. And so I think that to me is the real positive message, that that our values as consumers are influencing companies to do things in the right direction. So I agree with you. I like that finding a lot.
Yeah. Another point from the report. So I think this one is interesting. Cybersecurity defenses will rely more on lightweight platforms to protect distributed infrastructures as more move to the edge. So the part that really catches my eye there is the idea of lightweight platforms. I would think maybe that cybersecurity is going to rely on some very heavyweight platforms. But what does that mean, lightweight platforms? What does the point mean to you?
This is really about, I think the pattern we see in everything in the digital space as we scale it up is that it's not about having the biggest solution. It's about having the most distributed solutions. I mean, defense in depth is a long-term mantra for cybersecurity. Because, if your digital landscape is highly distributed, we see microservices and APIs and all these different layers of technology, your security has to be the same way. And so, it seems like anything that you can plug in these days can connect to a network, right? So many more smart devices. So the attack surface for companies just becomes larger and larger.
Right.
And so I think a challenge for organizations is, as they digitally transform, the big value proposition is being more open, being more connected. Well, from a security standpoint, that means there's more to protect. And the only way to protect it is with defenses at all layers, whether it's at the edge, all the intersection points, and then right down into the data layers. So this is just the reality of the more you have to deal with complex systems, the more you have to break things down and have modular solutions.
Okay. Next point, real-time analytics will be used to automate decision-making, thus accelerating time to value and eliminating wasted opportunities. I guess if that means that management is actually going to have to pay attention to what the real-time analytics platforms are telling them. I hope that management is willing to do that.
Yeah, well, I think most companies now are at a point where they have the data. Like I think we've seen this shift, and these things tend to happen quickly. Where like the hockey stick, I mentioned earlier, I'm Canadian, so I like that analogy. But
hockey stick, in that meaning the upward and the right in terms of complexity.
Yeah, well, in terms of like where you're striving for, hey, we need more data, we need to collect all the data, and then you hit this inflection point where you say, oh, we have so much data, how can we find the data that we need?
Right.
But I do think most companies now are getting much better at putting their arms around the data. And we've seen, the world that I've been working primarily in user-facing applications, operational data has been evolving like crazy around distributed solutions and cloud computing. But there's a whole other world in technology around analytical data that's been evolving as well, massive Cambrian explosion of innovation around big data and machine learning and artificial intelligence. I think what we're seeing now is that the scale of being able to just look at dashboards and understand the data and then manually react to that or have a human reaction to that's not scalable for organizations now, especially the pace of business and digital. So I think the big challenge now is, how do you get that analytical world to meet up with this operational world where you can automatically derive the insights and inject them into the actual customer experiences, employee experiences? And then how do you get more data back from that and then influence the analytical model? So creating this real feedback loop between those worlds. That's what I'm seeing a lot of companies realize now, that, okay, we have the analytical data, how can we act on it? And the only way to act on it with any efficiency and scalability is by having that developing those automatic feedback loops. Now, granted, there's danger there because we've seen examples when you create those feedback loops, whether it's in trading algorithms and so on, you can get this oversteering effect. But that's really the challenge I think a lot of organizations are finding out. How do we get the insights out of our analytical world and automatically get them into our user experiences?
Well, I think that point leads us really to our next point, which is let's drill down into Mulesoft, what Mulesoft is doing. So how is Mulesoft addressing the application integration needs of its clients? I mean, there's other companies that do this. Why would someone choose Mulesoft?
Yeah, well, yeah, we've been in the game for a long time. I think Mulesoft's evolution has been really interesting because it was really starting out with this idea of getting rid of the donkey work, or automating the donkey work in the integration space. That's kind of
hence the name. Okay, yeah,
hence the name. And then I think what happened as we were working with our customers, recognizing that it's not just a matter of connecting things together point to point. There's actually a way of taking the assets, software functionality, data in an organization and turning those into business capabilities through APIs that can be used to compose, business process automation, personalized user experiences, customer experience. So it was more of an opinionated way of saying, hey, we have this composable approach where we can create all these building blocks that you can use to innovate and automate all these things. As our customers have matured in that space, now we're seeing that once they have a good building block, a good set of all these different business capabilities, now they want to take advantage of better automation, more seamless automation. So we've kind of building this maturity curve with them. It's not just about integrating. It's now about automating. It's about providing these really seamless customer experiences. And so the point I was just making about the analytical world, companies that have created these composable units of functionality or composable pieces of data, they have an approach that actually is scalable and actually kind of helps companies be more agile, being able to react much more quickly to changing demands. Because I think that one of the things I've observed is that it's great to have a plan and say, hey, we've charted out our 5-year strategy for our company. But in the digital world, how many times does that come true? There's just so many things just move so quickly.
So many variables, right?
Going back to that feedback loop idea, it's really about being able to react as quickly as possible. And we're finding that companies that are able to break down their business capabilities in this way have the tools in place to automate. We've come up with a whole set of tools that make it easier, not just for IT people to be involved in integration and automation, but even have business users using low code, no code technology to be part of that game. And I think as companies, as the digital foundation becomes more central to every company's needs, you can't rely on a small slice of the world that are developers to build everything, right? You have to get everybody involved. It becomes everybody's job to build digital solutions. Mm-hmm. So that's a very exciting area that we're helping our customers with too.
Interesting. Well, let's look to what I think of as the big question. So the future of digital transformation. I think the companies all over really want to know that, need to know that. I mean, I know we'll never be done, but what do you see as a couple of next chapters in digital transformation?
I think that you're absolutely right. First of all, this is not digital transformation is not something you ever complete. In fact, I would even say, don't want to get too nerdy, but like digital transformation itself, I don't think that's really the point anyway. Like I think, again, digital technologies are a means to an end. And right. To me, what they do is remove a lot of friction between you and your customers, right? If you're a company and you have customers, like it just makes things a lot easier to connect, makes things more real time, and so on. So I think for most companies now, the big step they need to take is really looking at their whole operating model and even the way they're structured. And what we're seeing a lot of, and this is the trends report has some great points around digital transformation trends. We did another report earlier in the year around IT leaders getting their, what they're seeing. And we're seeing the business and IT come together in a way that's, again, post-pandemic, that was trending before the pandemic, but now is happening even more, where people are realizing we can't just have this IT silo and all these business units as a traditional operating model. We actually have to figure out more ways to get that business knowledge and technology knowledge in the same teams at the lowest level. Gartner calls it fusion teams, but we're seeing it all over the place in different forms, whether it's a company totally restructuring themselves around having product teams and having more of a product centricity, or whether it's a matter of working within the current structure and sort of bringing teams together on a temporary basis. But I think that's the big shift, is looking at the organizational dynamics and seeing how close is the business knowledge to the technology knowledge, and how do you get that firing? Because it all comes down to people at the end of the day. And so you have to optimize for getting people working in the right way. So I think that's the big shift everyone needs to do.
Well, it's going to be a fascinating sector to follow, to be sure. And Matt, thanks so much for sharing your insights today. Come back and talk to us again sometime.
I'd love to do that. Thanks for having me.